Usually I'm like, if I don't have something and others have something that they are good at,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
open about telling, hey, can you teach me? I've even told a couple of like young college students who were interning for me once. I told them,
Right.
hey,
Right.
I have no idea how you did this. Can you teach me how to do it? Because
Yeah.
the learning process is not always about learning from people older, more successful. Sometimes it's also about looking at the younger generation. They have so much of fresh,
Right.
perspectives they bring to the table. So I
Yeah.
think network, I would also put that one word in. Networking could be
Yeah.
cross generational. It does not always have to flow from top to bottom. It can also
Right.
flow from like bottom to top, and the
Yeah.
changes there would be enormous if it cross flows. So
Yeah. 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 No, no, that is very well said.
once you come to a new
Right. Right.
country, you're like playing it safe. Just want like get the visa, stick with the job. Just don't ruffle any feathers. Keep
Right.
going. But what
Right.
if
Right.
you took an offensive stance? What if you
Yeah.
ended up giving back, like in a very
Yeah.
respectful and a gentle way? You don't have to be aggressive, but
Right. Right.
you don't have to take shit. You can stand up
Yeah.
for yourself. You can speak up for yourselves in a way that's
Yeah.
professional, but
Yeah.
you got to do it for yourself because nobody else can do it for you, right? So that's something I would, let the audience think a little bit about
Yeah.
how what aspects of Indianness or the culture do you want to hold on to, and what
Yeah.
aspects are not serving you.
Hey everyone, welcome to yet another podcast of Pathfinders episode. We are here exploring journeys of fellow humanity. Yes, I did use the word humanity. It is fun being a human, isn't it? So let's go. We are here exploring journeys of individuals who are redefining life through patience, redefining success through determination, and innovation through leadership, and of course, redefining humanity through love. So let's welcome our guest today. Welcome, Tamanna Ramesh. It's an honor to introduce you today. Tamanna Ramesh is a distinguished leader whose journey from India to the United States is a story of hard work, determination, and strategic vision. After earning over $135,000 in scholarships and grants, Tamanna advanced from a graduate research assistant to a leadership role in the food science industry. Her career is a testament to the values of perseverance and merit, successfully navigating the complexities of the US immigration system, including, most importantly, earning an EB1 green card. Right. So Tamanna, and that is no small feat at all. Tamanna is also the founder of Spark Career Services, where she focuses on empowering individuals, particularly those who are often underrepresented in STEM fields. Her commitment to supporting professionals at various stages of their career aligns with her belief in the power of self reliance and personal growth. We are excited to have Tamanna here with us today. Her story is an inspiring example of how embracing challenges and taking initiative can lead to remarkable achievements. Tamanna, welcome. Please share a little bit more about you. We'd love to hear more.
Thank you so much, Ujayan. I mean, you've done a great job. I think I need to ask you for the introduction about me. You've tried to like portray it in a way that kind of talks about the entire journey, because as somebody who's going through the journey, I'm so ingrained in my day to day, so it's nice to take a step back and just take it all in. Thank you for having me, and I love the name of your podcast. I think Pathfinders is just, it speaks a lot of volumes to many people who are trying to figure out different things, whether it's career, immigration, or just life in general, right? So I'm so excited to be here today.
No, that's brilliant. Thanks for that. We are trying our every bit, and we just want to try and have an honest conversation, like with and find great minds around the globe, and then have that conversation. I think that is missing in the society as of today. So and we thought let's have it, let's do it, and that's where this was begun, and So this is our fourth episode, and we are so excited to have you here, Tamana, and I can't wait to chat more about it. So tell me more about your background. I know you came from India and whatnot, but like tell us our audience like more about your background, how it all happened, and what took you to the US and whatnot. Tell us a little more.
For sure. So I think for me, it was growing up. I grew up in Karur, in a small town in Tamil Nadu within India. And growing up in a small town with the kind of exposure I had, I did not have like big ambitions per se. But when I was about like 13 to 15 years old, I just had this like inner, I don't know, like craving for exploring whatever was outside of my hometown. So I asked my parents to put me in a boarding school voluntarily. Really enjoyed it, and then I just took my life from there and just started designing it on my own terms and based on my own interests. Right. So for me, the whole I think turning point was when I had lunch with a family member. He's somebody that I met for the first time in my life at that point and has become a great advisor and a very good well-wisher for me. He talked about this course called food process engineering. It was actually in Coimbatore. I know you're from Coimbatore, so it was
Right.
at a very casual conversation. He brings up. He's like, Tamanna, I think you should consider, this new institute which is just formed in Tanjavur. All they focus on is like food processing or crop processing. And I got to thinking, I was like, I was a big time foodie all along. That's something I knew about
Right.
myself so much.
Right.
And I was like, oh, if I can study food and like get an engineering degree in food, what could be more exciting than that? So I think that was like one decision I made on my own without anybody counseling me or trying to, pitch that this is a great career opportunity. I think it was purely like a choice of passion at that point. And I went to that school which was just getting started. So there was one batch of students who joined before us, but it was a total population of maybe like 100 people, so including the first batch, second batch, which was my batch, and then all the faculty combined. So I always like to call it like a startup of a college at that time. And
Right.
it was a central government institution, so there was a lot of backing from the government to kind of expand it. Right
Yeah.
now it's a very reputed institution, but back in the day nobody would know it even existed. You have to like,
If you
yeah,
don't mind me interrupting, sorry for that. I mean, like, if anyone who is interested in the food industry who wants to explore the
yeah,
food scientist role that like you explored, like, can you at least mention the name of the institute so anyone
absolutely.
listening can go and explore it as well?
Absolutely. It is right now, it's called the National Institute of Food Technology and Entrepreneurship Management.
Got it. Got it.
Back in the day, it was called Indian Institute of Crop Processing Technology, but I think they had a rebranding, and it's completely backed by the Ministry of Food Processing and Industries in India. So it's a really good
Got it.
institution to, explore. And I think they also offer a lot more courses now than they did back in the day.
Right.
Yeah. So back in the day, funny story, we would sit with our professors and try to create syllabuses because they did not exist, right? So it was a complete, I think that's where a lot of my like the
Right.
leadership ability, the ability to think and form something from scratch, take and run with it, even if it's in
Right.
the dark, came
Right.
from. Yeah.
No, that's very exciting. I mean, you never know where life takes you, isn't it? Because one conversation in a dinner table allow you to explore something in the food industry. I mean, that is very exciting. I've never spoken to anyone who had pursued a path like yours and came to the United States. And of course, when you moved from India, of course, where I grew up and got my studies, and like for a long part, I did spend a lot of time in India as well growing up. And coming to US, of course, I'm sure there are like more challenges and things that you did not expect to see here. And what was it like? What was the initial period in the US, and what was it like after a few years?
Great question. I think initial like one I still remember the day that I landed. So I think there's some context I also want to add. Going to America wasn't my dream. My dream was to get a lot of education, exposure, come back to India and teach. So I found a way to get, fully funded scholarships to get to the US. Um, Came to the University of Maine. I don't know if you know where Maine is.
Yeah, on the East Coast, like
Yeah,
yeah, north of Boston, right? North of
yeah,
Mass, right? Yeah,
exactly, exactly. So I had not much awareness about the geography of US at that time. I just
Right.
like got this offer. I was excited. I Googled the school. It seemed okay-ish. So I was like, okay, let's just go and see how it is. So the first day, I remember it being so quiet at night. It was so hard for me to like, I don't know, like accept that level of quietness in life, because back in
Yeah.
India you have the fan, going on, you have
Of
like
course.
people around. It's and
The
I
missing
never,
white noise.
yeah, I know. We had like, standard ongoing white noise growing up, right?
Yeah.
And I always shared
Right.
my room with my sibling or roommates in boarding school and colleges. So for me, having my own room and having like no sound of any sort, I could not fall asleep that night. I also
Right.
started in the spring semester, so it was like in the midst of winter when I moved here. So Maine in winter is like almost like a Narnia movie. So I got lost several times in the snow. Absolutely like got so confused and overwhelmed many times about just
Yeah.
adapting to the weather, the culture. Um, at that time, I didn't even think I would live here this long. I thought I would study, go back. But
Right.
I
And when
think
was this? Was it like 2015 ish or
2014 December, so right
14
about
ish?
then.
Okay.
Yeah,
Got
yeah.
it. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, in retrospect, I think thinking from where I am today, I'm so excited and happy that I got to experience a lot of things, open my mind to new things that I did not have exposure to. I think a lot of those things were around the career front, because I think I wanted to go back and teach, because at that time my exposure was only the professors that I got to interact with, right? So in terms of profession, every time I thought about something, I was like, I want to be a professor. And then when I came here, I'm like, oh, I could be a food scientist, I could be a process engineer, I could do like 10 different things that I didn't even think about, right? So I think that was one of the key things I would suggest to people who are listening as well. Any aspect of life, whether you're in US or other countries or even back
Right.
in India, I think having that openness to explore something that's a little bit outside of your, comfort level or even like awareness, and
Right.
going with that curiosity to know, okay, let's see what happens. I think that's the thing that got me all along, whether it was my immigration, EB1, every step of the journey was like, let's see what happens, right? Maybe I'll
Right.
do it, maybe I won't, but I want to find out. So I think that
Yeah.
curiosity is something that carried me throughout the 10 years that I've been in the US.
Yeah. No, no, that is amazing. I mean, it's always fascinating to hear the journey when you come from a totally different country, and of course, uh, sharing a same country, kind of like we share certain. Oh, yeah, I kind of relate to that. And one thing that when I speak to immigrants and especially folks coming from India is like not many realize that to get a permanent residency, which looks like a driver's license, and because I really wanted to look at it, and I was telling Atul the other day, my sister got a green card at the time, and can you please show me that card how it looks like it? And I saw it; it looks like a driver's license. And at the time, my weight was about 50 years, and I think now Atul's normally tweets it's about 100 plus years. I haven't checked the timeline right now, but like not many realize that the wait is so long,
Yeah,
right? I mean, to actually pursue something, and like there's a lot of perseverance and following your like work ethic and the legal process. It takes a lot of toll, right? I mean, not many realize that such a heavy. I mean, especially when you're going through your one is you have to take care of your education, and then the secondary, like once you're in your job, maintaining your legal status, and then following through the due process. It's its own job,
yeah.
right? Tell us a little bit more about that.
I think for me, 2019 to 2022 were the most difficult years in the US, because I realized I wanted to stay here, but I did not like the fact that, the saying yes to visa sponsorship was kind of curtailing a lot of different things I wanted to explore. Very
Right,
early in my career, I knew I wanted to be a jack of all trades. I did not want to do the same thing forever. So for me to jump around and move from one, job to another, one company to another, it just felt like, oh my God, it's never going to be easy with this whole visa thing. That's when I started paying attention. I was like, okay, how do we overcome this? And thankfully, I knew, I learned from one person that NIW is an option to get your priority date. So, for those of you who don't know what NIW is, it's called National Interest Waiver, where the US, it's basically the same as EB2 category. So, it's not going to like accelerate anything, but you can take things under your own control. If your employer is not sponsoring you for the green card, that's the first stage of the process to secure a priority date. So somebody told me it's possible for me to do it on my own, and I started
Right.
finding an attorney. I worked with them, got my priority date secured. I think that was in 2020. And then I was like, I got this like boost of confidence. I was like, okay, maybe the US thinks that I'm important and I need to, my profession is important and they want me to stay. And that's a little bit of a, moral boost that I had. Then I
Yeah.
started hearing from one more person, a different person, and he was like, oh, I got my EB1 green card. I did not have a PhD. I did not have any publications, no review. I'm like, what? I thought I was supposed to go to school, get a PhD, and then
Yeah.
increase my chances. So for me, that one person story just like went into my head, and I was holding on to that ray of hope and trying to
Right.
do everything to try and make that work for me. And thankfully it did. When I applied, like I mentioned before, my intent was, hey, let's try it out. If it doesn't happen, I already had a plan B. I was going to move to Canada. I applied for the express entry, permanent residency application.
Right.
The funny irony in the whole thing was my Canada PR never came through, and I got my US PR.
I'm so sorry.
I think that was the
Yeah.
universe telling me, okay, this is your path.
Yeah.
Just stick with it and go with it. So, yeah, I think those 3 years were super grueling because it was very draining not to have an
This is in
understanding of
between COVID, isn't it?
exactly. And I was
Right.
doing a part-time MBA because I was in
Right.
this whole crisis mode because I was afraid that if I moved to Canada, my career would stumble. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
because food science is a profession that not in
Of
all
course.
parts of the world you get the kind of
That's
opportunity.
right.
So yeah, I was super scared. I was very grueling. I was holding on to like one single ray of hope and just chasing it. I think those were the most difficult years, but I'm glad to be on the other side. To be truly honest, I got my green card in October of 2022, and
Right.
one and a
Congratulations.
thank you. After 1.5 years, I'm able to talk about it. It
Yeah.
took all the time to just get out of it, believe that
Yeah.
it happened, and come to that like equilibrium state of mind, the
Yes.
whole process. And that's why I reached out to you too, because I want to be that one person for many other people who do not,
Yeah.
have that hope. I just hope that if they want to try, at least give their best before they give up.
Yeah.
But yeah, and to your earlier point, right now, I think the wait time is about 153 plus years. So,
Wow. You must be joking. That is what I thought. I mean, when someone said, "Oh, you're probably going to wait like 30 or 40, 50 years," and like because like I don't know if many people know. Hearing like I used to live in Pennsylvania. I was in Des Moines for a bit. Then I moved to East Coast. I was in Pennsylvania, and like and we were constantly trying to research and understand what's going on with this whole green card thing and. Oh my goodness, it is such a mess, isn't it? So I mean,
it is.
but at the
It
same
is.
time, we didn't stop. I mean, like in my journey, I was going to pursue like yours, like either Canada or Australia at the time, and we had some inclination to Canada because we had some friends here and family here. So we thought let's move north, even though it is a little colder
Colder.
on few days of the month, but few days of the year. But we are. We have gone through it. It's been like 6 years, hard and strong.
Nice. Nice. Awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And I think I mean I hear this code and I really like it in terms of I think the only limiting realization of tomorrow is the doubts that we have today, right? I mean, like if we keep limiting ourselves and you cannot see a better future, you cannot see a brighter future. So the only limits are our imagination. And that being said, so green card is whole another journey. You came here to study, and then you took a leadership position in some of the key industry that in your food science industry that you were going into, right? Tell us a
Yeah.
little bit more about that, please.
Yeah, for sure. So my first job out of college was actually as a food scientist, where I
Yeah,
was developing. I think a lot of times when I say food science, people think I cook in the kitchen. That's only partly like maybe somewhat true. Like 20% of the job is like recipe development. You come and like
yeah.
what's your favorite food product?
My favorite food product
Like
is like I eat a
packaged food product that you'd get out
packaged
of
food product.
grocery.
It's like potato chips,
Okay.
yeah,
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 let's take the chips. How do you think the chips taste exactly the same way every time you
yeah.
buy it across the country in any part of the not any part of the world because flavor differences are, regional,
Right,
like across the
right.
country all the time, right? So behind every product there is a food scientist who engineered that product, who designed that
Hmm.
product, made it what it is in terms of its texture, flavor, color, appearance,
Right,
and then with the marketing team working together we create the packaging. And there's also a lot of science that goes behind the packaging itself, how the product and package interacts. And we
right.
have an extensive, I think it's a multidiscipline, within the
Hmm.
food R&D itself, because we have product, package, technology, equipment innovation, as well as sensory science, where we work
Hmm.
with consumers to understand if Vijayan is our persona, does he like our product? Would he pay for it? Would he buy it over and over? How do we make him, want to buy it over and over? So there is like a whole extensive, team of R&D members who work on that. So my first job was in a family owned company. I started off as a food scientist developing products for medical weight loss. So
Right.
mostly high protein, low fat, low carb products. I was there with them for a couple of years when Kraft Heinz reached out on LinkedIn, asked me to interview for a role that they had open again in R&D. And I
Amazing.
got to do this fun job of creating cheese powders for snack seasoning and a lot of different applications. So I worked on
Right.
that for a couple of years. I've made about like five career pivots so far. So every 2 years, I would change either
Good for you.
internally. Thank you. It's
Yeah.
something I think I knew I've always wanted to be like a broader,
Right.
expert in different things. Not an expert per se, but like jack of all trades.
Explore,
Absolutely. Yeah.
explore, and find out what it is. Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah. And I also want to be somebody who can do many things. Put me in, I'll figure out a way to learn and do it and deliver. So I think started off as a food scientist, pivoted to like a process engineering role, again within the food industry, where
Right.
the company was trying to expand the frozen capabilities. So I would go into the factory, try to come up with equipment we need to buy, how we would set up that line, how we would position everything so it flows well, and the
Yeah.
product again looks exactly the same way it should. Where you
Tastes
have
exactly the same.
exactly.
Yeah.
And frozen is complex because I was working on meals, so you had to have for example, potatoes and the beans and the sauce, and it cannot get
Yeah.
mushy. So you have to
Right.
like assemble it in a way that it stays the same way. So when you open, it's
Right.
not disgusting. So
Oh wow.
that was a very fun gig, I would say. Like I really enjoyed that. And then now I'm working at Coca-Cola company as director of global innovation. Most of
Right.
what I do is focused on equipment innovation. So we are working towards sustainability and digital transformation, making sure
Right.
all our equipment are smarter than existing equipment we have. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
No, that this is no, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, innovation in food. I mean, the best innovation I can come up with food is probably when I make an omelet. And probably today I'm adding mushrooms or like chilies or like cilantro. Right, that's the
yeah,
innovation I know.
yeah,
But but this is really this is quite a thing that
yeah.
what you guys are doing and what you have accomplished between Kraft, Heinz, and like Coca Cola and whatnot. This is really amazing to hear. Taman. And for, I mean, in this conversation, I think sometimes I'll be like, we'll be going back and forth just to bring everything together. It's more of a mind map conversation.
Yeah.
And you can tell I'm really not that structured, but like, anyway, I'll try to bring,
That's
bring,
completely fine.
bring that like overall. Okay, fine. So you came to the US, you have now explored, you're a food scientist and you have made yourself a career and things like that, whatnot. And one of the things I think that we also want to touch is you got a good considerable grant in terms of scholarships when you approach this, isn't it? So
Yeah.
so for someone, oh, like look at Tamanna, see, so she's a food scientist director of like equipment and machinery in Coca Cola. Okay, I want to do that, so I want to be able to go through that path from different college institution. If I want to get those same grants, how would I approach it? What would be some tips that you would suggest anyone?
Great question. I think this is a subject close to my heart. I want to like somewhere get into the tallest building and just yell out and make everybody listen about all the things that are out there that you can do. But
Yeah,
I think in India, especially in India, it's very commercialized the way people sell education, right?
right,
Because I think if you think about what Indians pay or spend a lot of their money on, it's education and then weddings, right? Those two
right.
come on top of the list because that's
Yeah,
a status symbol, that is something that has worked
yeah,
for many in terms of advancing in life and
yeah,
in other
yeah.
ways. So a lot of times people sell the idea of getting into a college, and what that comes with is a huge debt for most people, most middle class and upper middle class people. And then
That being in the when they pursue something in the West
in
or
in the US,
in
yeah,
the US.
subject
Okay,
to
got it.
US, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
an average education right now costs about easily 1 crore rupees, which is 100 to 200,000 dollars, right?
Of course,
So
of
in my
course.
case, at that time, to be fully transparent, my family could not afford it. They would have definitely went stretched and got me a loan, whatever, right? Like they would have gone all the way to do it, just like I know many people do what they do and
Right,
come to the US. But I didn't want to take that path. I wanted to build something of my own. So
right,
again, I knew one person who went abroad on a full ride scholarship. They called it a research assistantship. And I was like, I need to figure that out. How do I get it? Because I knew I was very good. And I had that like huge appetite for learning, right? I can learn and do anything kind of mindset.
right,
So my advisor at that time was my first ever sponsor actually in my education and career together, because he saw my success as his own. And when he
right,
realized that I wanted to go abroad, I wanted to get one of the best education, he started advising me on how I can approach it. So
right,
eventually, now looking back, what I would tell others is instead of going behind ranking, instead of getting sucked into, oh, the best consultancy, they're definitely going to get me admitted. If you can afford it, great, go for it. Go to the best schools, pay 1 crore, 2 crore if you can afford it. If you
yeah,
cannot,
yeah,
then the better way is look at, first of all, you need to know what you want to study, whether it's food science or any other sciences, engineering, even tech. And then look at where the money is going, right? Like what is US government putting their money into, which universities
right,
are getting these grants, how do
yeah,
you approach those universities so you can be part of the research team that is adding value to the US. That
right,
actually lays a great foundation for their career and immigration in the US, because
yeah,
I didn't even realize how much of my like 5 years between 2014 to 2019, when I realized I wanted to be in the US, already I had
right,
my profile built even without knowing, because I was
right,
working on a research project which was funded by the government, and I got to know about it even before coming here, even before applying, and then reached out to the professor. He said he had funding, he was looking for a student, and I had the right experiences to match that. And
right,
I got the funding, and I was I mean, I still remember that day. I was in a train station, I get this email which has this
yeah,
acceptance letter, and they have about like 50,000 a year written there, and I'm just reading it again. It's like 50,000 rupees or $50,000, like what
of
is the
course, yeah,
deal? But it was
yeah,
in US dollars. So
yeah,
I was able to come here without that financial burden, right? So I was not
right,
desperate when the time came to graduate. It was not like, oh my God, I have to get a job to pay back the loan. It was more like, hey, I have no loan. In fact, I was paid on a monthly basis about like 15 to 1900 at that time,
got it,
to have a stipend for being a research assistant. And then when I
right,
graduated, it was a huge financial, I don't know, like lack of financial burden, right? That's something I would love for people to aim for.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, no, that is amazing. So just so I understand, so you did your bachelor's and master's in India, and then you pursued like a research, like PhD in the US. Is that right, or
No,
am I saying it wrong?
no, no, no. I
No.
actually do not have a PhD. So I pursued my
Okay.
bachelor's in India and then came to the
Okay.
US for my master's in,
Masters. Okay.
yeah,
Got it.
in food
Got it. Got
science.
it. Right, because like I've seen like folks, oh, the Ivy League, quote unquote, the Ivy League, the 200,000, 300,000, 400,000. Now I've seen people like talking about 500,000 to finish their courses and whatnot, right? I mean, like
Yeah,
that is a lot of burden, and not I'm not sure like if many people know, like you touched upon it, people literally like sell their property and the land, and take huge bank loans
yeah,
with super high interest rates, either from India or elsewhere, and then put their child through this path, and yeah, and they're burdened for like tens of like at least a couple decades to go through that and
go
pay it all back.
through.
It's a long process. That being said, it's such a relief for someone to hear, oh yeah, there is a potential option to go through merit, and if you qualify, you get your scholarships, and this is the
Mhm.
way to go. And
Yeah.
I'm sure like you have gone through a mentorship program. There was enough like mentors who are like probably trying to coach you,
Hmm.
and like tell us more about like finding those mentors and who align with your value system, and like what kind of impact that brought in your whole process. Because I'm sure like mentoring, getting a right mentor and choosing a right mentor is super important in this whole process, I suppose.
Absolutely. I think I always like to say that there needs to be, you cannot think of like one person as your mentor forever, right? There
Of
needs to be
course,
a
yeah.
mentor for every season. So I think
Yeah.
back in 2014, 2013, when I was just interested in the US education and things like that, I had one of my seniors who mentored me on GRE and TOEFL. He did not teach me about it, but he just told me, hey, if you really want to do it, you need to go get your GRE scores and TOEFL scores. So
Right.
I just put my head down, focused on it for 6 months, knocked it out, and then called him back and said, hey, that's done. What do I do next? Because I had no idea, right? A lot of my family members were living in the US, but they had moved like 20, 30 years back. Versus
Right.
what I was facing was new even to them. Even if they wanted to help me, they're like, well, we have no idea.
Of
Um,
course.
you have to figure it out. So I think identify the mentors are people who are usually like two steps ahead of you in the path that you want to travel in.
Right.
But sponsors are people who can actually unlock huge opportunities for you. So, sponsors are people who speak behind the closed doors about you to other people to get you the opportunities, right? So, my undergraduate advisor, Dr. Jitendra Sahu, he was my first sponsor because when I got rejected by like almost six universities for my master's with funding, he ended up reaching out to all his contacts. He sent my profile with like a handwritten like recommendation about me. It's not even a formal recommendation letter. He just like
Right.
vouched for me, and that unlocked my first opportunity to get that fully funded US education. And then
Right.
I want to also touch on two other sponsors, but I know you're going to ask me more like eventually, and I can touch on that like at that time. They
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
career and immigration sponsors more so than education. So
Got it. No,
yeah,
no, it's all good. We like to know everything. So,
yeah, yeah,
so yeah,
yeah.
yeah, of course. So I see that you have the passionately interested about Indra Nui, who is from the Pepsi, right?
Yeah.
She led Pepsi for a long time, such a successful company, and of course, probably your competitor right now. But
Yeah.
regardless of that, I think from an industry, from a food science point of view and leadership point of view, I'm sure you have learned a ton of lessons from Indra Nui. What are something that you like to share about Indra Nui?
Yeah, for me, I think Indra Nui is that constant role model, to be honest. Even though I sometimes, like I think about it, she came from Tamil Nadu. She had similar starts. She has a STEM background. Most people don't even know that. I
Right.
think she has a
Where
bachelor's.
is she from again? I didn't know she was from
She's from
the
Tamil
south.
Nadu. She grew
Okay.
up in Chennai. She has a bachelor's in chemistry, I think, from Madras Christian College.
Oh,
Moved
good to know.
I think she did her MBA in India and then a second MBA in the US at Yale.
Right.
And then started off, and this is like what, like 30, 40 years back, I don't know, like 30 years
Of
back
course.
at the
Yeah.
least,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
her to, I think probably even more, but for her to start at that point and take her career all the way to lead a company that's as huge as PepsiCo, and
Yeah.
she just like went with it. She has shown a lot of things. So every time I think about, oh, what my ambition needs to be, I'm like, yeah, if Indra Nooyi can do it, maybe I should aim a little, like at least a little higher, not like higher than her, but like higher than where I am
Yeah.
right now. I don't want to be complacent and think that this is it. So she
Right.
has been that like guiding role model because she comes from where I come from. She is very similar in many ways.
Right.
But I think one key thing I would take away from her, I don't have kids right now, but every time she
Right.
talks about work life balance and how her kids have missed out a lot. I mean, she has
Yeah.
missed out a lot with her kids. Her kids are like upset about certain things, but she always talks about that balance, right? You can have it all, but
Yeah.
not at the same time. I think that's something I try to put in my head all the time when I think about my life, my future. I want to have it
Yeah.
all. Like, I want the
Right.
family, I want the career, I want my side, my business
Yeah.
to grow. I want to be
Right.
social. So I feel every time I have this like huge set of, mm, I don't know, different things I want in life, I'm like, okay, I know I can have it all. It's just not at the same time. So every phase of life, I try to choose one to two things that I want to fully have. And then other
Right.
one to two things, I'll partially be there, but not like all the time. So I think that
Yeah.
has helped kind of define my own balance for me, and I try to like, that's one thing I think is very well said.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
No, I like what she has said. I have not researched much into Indra Nooyi, but the only thing I would know at the level of, oh yeah, she led Pepsi,
yeah,
and I see that I think she started a trail of like leading companies, and now we have tons of companies led by people from the East. And yeah, I mean, like, I'm definitely happy that many other Indians, our fellow Indians, are doing it. But at the same time, I want everyone to have the opportunity as well. Come on, guys,
yeah,
don't crowd it. I know we are probably the most populated country on the planet, but at the same time, give everyone an opportunity as well, and let others lead as well. And then, like, yeah, who wins the race, let them do it. But it's I'm kidding, but at the same time, I'm so definitely happy and proud that so many have done it, and seeing so many are going to do it.
yeah,
So, and I'm sure somebody should also mentor others who can do it. Hey, I've done it. And like probably Indra Nooyi wrote a ton of books, and you'll learn from her and so many others. And you touched upon family. I think I'm super passionate about the family aspect. Without my family, I wouldn't be here, sitting here and having a conversation. My wife has been super supportive. My son has been super supportive. I think the family plays an important role in everyone, what they're able to do in society. And I think that is so defining and telling, because where the society is moving is for less of family and things like that. I'm probably on the other side, okay,
pro
without family,
family.
because yeah, without family, people don't exist in the society, right? I mean, like, if my parents hadn't been supportive of me moving to the US or doing different things at the time, and before I was married, and like, so yeah, I mean, I think family plays a huge part in everyone's growth. So that is at least undeniable, as far as I so believe it. Uh, Speaking about your support networks,
Yeah,
right? I mean, how important is it to seek out and build your own support networks, especially when you're in a foreign country? And of course, everyone understands US, but at the same time, not everyone understands the support and the network that you need to build around what you're trying to do, right?
yeah,
How would you like to touch
absolutely.
upon that?
Yeah, I would love to, because I'm a social butterfly myself. So um,
I can
it,
tell. Yeah,
yeah, it was fairly relatively easier for me to build a network because I like people connections. I seek people connections, and I invest in it. I invest my time, I invest my energy, try to like put more efforts to keeping that going. So I started off with just building friends, right? No intentional, oh, I need somebody who has this. It was just starting off with like a friendship situation. And I think it was good that I started my life in the US in Maine, because there were not a lot of like Indian students around me. And not to say that it's a bad thing, but it put me in a
yeah,
different path than a lot of other people's experiences. So we had
right,
about like 20 total Indian students, and
right.
one other Tamil student. And so we kind of formed a Southeast Asian association. So we were very closely like hanging out with Nepalis, Bangladeshis, several other countries. So it
Right.
opened me up to a lot of different cultures, even within the Southeast Asia, even within India, that I was not
Yeah.
exposed to before.
Yeah.
I had some exposure, but I didn't live with them. I didn't like spend a lot of time with them, right? So that was very
Yeah.
interesting and different. And from there, I think what happened to me there was I had two Punjabi roommates. So
Right.
they really like broke that shy girl and made me like dance, made me do stuff that I would,
Yeah.
I mean like even taste beer, right? Like I wouldn't have ever like been open to it, but they
Right.
had that like fun push that I think made me experiment a little bit more. And from there, I moved to Augusta, Georgia, which is another small town in the US, not
Right.
one of the big popular cities. And in fact, in my first job, I was the only Indian in my entire company. So I saw there was a lot of curiosity. People were trying to understand what being Indian means and what Indian culture is about. Was curious about the food, the dress, everything about me. So that was very new to me because obviously, when you're in India, you're not thinking, oh, let me showcase my culture. You're
Of course.
just
Yeah.
living, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think in the first few years, I just hung out with people, built good relationships with no
Right.
intention of trying to make anybody give me a recommendation or get a job or do nothing. I was just doing it. And then
Right.
professionally, I was involved in a couple of professional organizations very actively. One I will name is called the Institute of Food Technologists. So it's a
Right.
professional organization for all people who are in the food industry on the STEM side mostly. So
Right.
I volunteered on a couple of roles, started building some connections there. Again, new people, no expectations, just started.
Mm.
And then what happened in 2019 to 2022 was fascinating because the first 5 years that I invested in people paid so much dividends in my life, personally and professionally, because all these people became either my cheerleaders who kept me going despite all the darkness. They became
Right.
people who gave me recommendation letters for my immigration or helped find somebody who can give that to me. Um,
Right.
they also became people who talked about me to others. They'd be like, hey, you should talk to Tamanna or you should go to her. So
Right.
they knew me, and I think that was huge because I didn't plan for it. I didn't realize that would happen. But
Right.
years down now, these are my trusted advisors. These are people I would totally be myself to without trying to. Especially the last year, I moved from being an R&D person to a manager to senior manager to director, all in a span of 1 year. And
Right.
it's a lot, I have to look better, dress better, talk.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's not that I have to, but I want to, I want to evolve.
Yeah.
So these are the people I would call and be like, hey, I have a meeting about this or whatever. And I
Yeah.
have prepared this, but somehow I feel it's not good enough. Can you help me? These are people
That's
who
right.
are, chasing imposter syndrome away from my head because they are like, hey, you remember 7 years back you did this? Just go with that mindset. You'll be fine. These are historians of
Right.
my life now. So they have
Yeah.
seen
Yeah.
me evolve and they believe in me and they remind me of myself sometimes.
Yeah.
So I think building a support system is very huge, whether it's homogenous, you want to stick with the Indian support system.
Yeah.
If it's working
Of
for you,
course.
great. If not, even venturing out and exploring, where other people are coming from, what
Yeah.
culture, what food, what experiences they have. I think, especially in the beginning, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to go to a conference, hand over resumes, find job.
Right.
I'm like, okay, that is never, I mean, maybe it works for 1% or less, times.
Yeah.
Nobody is coming to conferences to be like, hey, let me give Tamanna a job, right? They are coming.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. Most likely not.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So how do you, I think that's where I think networking with a very focused what do you need from others aspect fails
Right.
because
Right.
you have to first be open to knowing them,
Yeah.
giving, and
Yeah.
then when you ask they will give so much more. So that's
Yeah.
where I feel like networking should be about building relationships rather than.
Yeah.
I understand why people are anxious and trying to, like, oh my God, I need to get a job in 6 months. I need somebody to
Yeah.
give me a job. But the
Yeah.
reality is, building a career needs a network that is grounded in good relationships. So,
Yeah, no, I so 100% agree with that. I think you and I, when we were connecting initially for the short call, also, I think I remember mentioning it because, like, we work on at our company, we do software services and stuff. Like, I mean, it's not a, I'm not talking about Jared, but we definitely believe that relationships go first, and anything that comes out of like a product or sales, anything is probably the last.
yeah,
And the first thing is we are looking for like connections like this, relationships like this, and that goes a long way. And I think people are generally, regardless of where they are from, people like to connect. Humanity likes humanity more than they think they don't. I mean, that's how often do we go to a place where it's full of strangers and we have food. It's called a restaurant.
yeah,
I mean, like it's very it's we don't think about it, but like we like humanity more than we think. We like it. We like them, right? I mean, that I so believe it. So and I think people. Speaking of people from different cultures, from whether it's like whether North America, South America, like East, West. I think people are looking for pretty much the same. They want a warm food, a safe place to live,
hmm,
and a decent place to live. That's all they're looking for, and they like to have do good to their family. That's all
yeah,
they're looking for. And if you and the way they speak, the way the language they speak are different, but at the end of the day, they all look in. At least I feel they are all the same. The world is the same to me when I started understanding people a little bit.
I can
Just like,
agree more with you.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I just meant to say, for me, I think when I moved from India to the US, especially when I started interacting with Americans with no other
Yeah,
Indians
yeah,
around me, I realized how similar we are because
yeah,
at least
yeah,
the southern, like the Augusta experience I had, people were so family focused.
right.
I mean, it's just like the whole idea I had about US when I was in India versus when I came
Yeah,
here just was completely different. And
right.
I think I agree with you. I think there's a lot of similarities, I
Yeah,
mean, there are some distinct differences, like you cannot stick around with your parents until you get married and have a life right after kind of
yeah,
things, but there are good differences, and there's good
yeah,
cross pollination you can do across both ways
yeah.
of living. But yeah,
I definitely like what US is doing, and in terms of like the culture that it has evolved to a
yeah,
country, the concept of freedom and whatnot. But at the same time, I'd like to respect and each different countries and their own tradition as well. And because I'm also observing that the world is also kind of becoming like a monoculture.
yeah,
Everyone is having the same McDonald's burger. Everyone is having this wearing the same Levi's jeans or whatever. That's not really great. I mean, because like there has to be things that are very particular to that country and culture and tradition that is still valuable and like very. I think people can admire that, right?
yeah,
I think that has a place. As much as I admire the Western, the US, I mean, the European culture, I'll also like to admire other cultures as well. So,
yeah,
like Indian or South American, everything. Anyway, that's me. One other thing, I mean, something before we get into the Spark career service, I think something that like a quote from Benjamin Disraeli. I mean, he said that the greatest good you can do for another person is not just to share your riches, but to reveal to them their own riches, right? I mean, how do we empower other people, right? I think that's what it is about. And so, what are your thoughts about like empowering others? And of course, you founded the Spark Career Services.
no, that's a great quote. And for me, I'm an older sister. I have a younger sibling. So every time anything happens to me, I'm always thinking, it's a default mode of, oh my God, I don't want her to go through this. What do I do to make it better for her?
Oh yeah,
So I think that was the foundation for me starting my, Spark Career Services, the company to empower women and minorities in STEM to figure out their gifts and build a career founded in that and advance as fast as they would like to, and not get
right,
stuck because of systemic issues and barriers, like especially like immigration, financial constraints with education and other aspects. So
right,
for me, I think the quote is great. Even if one person could just do this for one more person, the ripple
yeah,
effect would be enormous, right? So for me, For example, my sister, she got also a full ride. She came to the US, she got her master's, and this was
Right.
on all on her own merit, like no sponsor. She just like knew the path. She went for
Yeah.
it, she got it. She got her NIW approval, so she has a priority date. She's working on EB1. She's completely different in terms of her personality, so I want her to have her own career path.
Right.
And I try to show her who she is as much as I can, and fly with it. So I think empowering others is not always about making them do what you did, but also showing them what they can do, and kind of
Right.
putting a mirror in front of their faces sometimes when they are
Right.
lost, to show who they are. I think
Right.
that's the most, I don't know, like exciting part for me in my whole journey. For me, it's like
Right.
when I do something for others, when they see that coming to fruition, it gives me more joy than my own success even. So
Right.
it's been that's been the foundation for Spark. So I'll tell you a little bit about how it started. It was a very
Yeah.
funny start.
Please.
Like when 2022 October, I get my green card, and then I'm like, oh my God, I got it. So now what, right? Like now I had to face out of this immigrant mindset to like somebody who
Yeah.
permanently lived in the US. What would that somebody want to do? And I started
Yeah.
asking my family and friends. I was like, I don't want to just do like my day job. I think I want to do something in the side that would be just
Right.
mine, based on what I love doing. What do you guys think I should do? Because I had like a blank slate at that time. And they were like, you're already reviewing so many people's resumes, LinkedIn, helping people like get into colleges. Why don't you make
Yeah.
it more formal? And I was like, oh, these are all my friends and family members. I don't know if I want to do this for, somebody I don't even know. And
Yeah.
I started off kind of testing it behind the scenes for about like 6 months to a year. I didn't even like publicize this. Behind the
Right.
scenes, I would just, put the word out to closest people and say, if anybody's looking for this, I can help, I think. So send them my way.
Right.
So I tested the waters a little bit. I absolutely loved it. I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. I need to make this a formal thing. So last
Yeah.
year in June, I registered my LLC, made it a formal business. I'm trying to develop it as a platform for coaches, including me.
Right.
So I'll be one of the
Right.
coaches, but I don't think I don't think one person can do it all, right? Do it all meaning I cannot be everything to everyone. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I can guide people on the career front, I can guide on the immigration front based on my experiences, but I want to bring in other people who are professors, who are other immigration success story, trailblazers, and
Right.
who have won even more scholarships than I have. So I started kind of, I feel I'm in a people business more than anything else, because I pick the right people who
Yeah.
have it in them,
Yeah.
who have seen success in many different ways.
Yeah.
They sometimes they don't even know that they want to be coaches. I'm like, I
Yeah.
usually reach out, I'm like, hey, I've seen you do this for like 8 years, you're always talking about this. Do you want to actually be part of Spark, partner with me and develop a program that's a little more formal, so they don't
Yeah.
have to worry about putting themselves out, creating a brand, trying to do all the marketing and the sales and all the stuff. Instead, they can
Right.
just focus on the coaching part. So
Yeah.
I started off with two people getting on board. Now we have about six coaches, and I'm eagerly waiting for a fashion coach to join us to help our clients dress better, feel more confident, develop that
Yeah.
executive presence, right? So it's a little bit of an artistic way of doing it. I don't have like a structured template of, hey, I want
Yeah.
X degrees, X accomplishment, and X thing for the coach. It's more like
Yeah.
I find good people, and I want the good people to engage with me in helping others in ways that
Yeah.
is meaningful to them. So it's been awesome so far. I love what I do on the side. I mean, sometimes
Yeah.
even more than my day job, but
Yeah.
most times I like both. So I'm trying to ride both until I can, and then see where it heads. So
This is very empowering, and in terms of like showing people who they are and being a mirror, like you mentioned, that is fascinating because it is not easy. One is self discovery is one part, and discovering another person is like without being judgmental. and at the same time reflecting, hey, these are probably your strengths, work on this. You already do it very naturally. Probably you can probably put more emphasis on it, and then like probably made it even bigger. How is that process looks like being that mirror, right? I mean, that is, I think, a super important piece of what you do with your the Spark Career Service. How does that work for you? Of course, you are in the people business, and I'm glad you are. But like,
Yeah.
how do you do that?
No, great question. I think so. There are two different ways my clients approach me. One is where they know what problem they have and they want to just
Right,
solve that problem. So, in those
right,
cases, I focus on personalized, customized solutions for their problem. So, the problem could look
right,
like I need a priority date, or I'm having a bad manager, I want to switch jobs, whatever that
right.
one problem is.
Of
But
course,
then
yeah.
there are clients who are eager to develop a career, not just finding a job, but they want to figure out who they are in this either existing field that they know of, or they're trying to figure the whole thing out. So I think
Right,
the self discovery process is quite extensive, to be honest, and a lot of people want to figure it out in one call. And
right.
sometimes I
It
had to
doesn't.
cut.
It takes time. Yeah, I'm sure.
Exactly,
Yeah,
yeah, and it happens over years, and I feel like now I think this is what I want, but
yeah,
2 3 years from now I may want something completely different,
yeah.
right? So I think being
Right, right,
open to that evolution is so foundational. I have
right.
this like one slide about my career where I thought I would become a professor, came to the US, went into the
Yeah,
industry. I thought I'll be in R&D forever. Before I knew, I wanted to be out of it. Now I'm like, I
yeah.
don't have any plans. My plan is I want to learn whatever job I'm in. I want to get the most out of it in terms of learning, and then see where it
Right.
takes me. Because that is
Yeah,
what I think discovering yourself happens over years versus 1 to 2 calls. So the way I approach it is trying to show them how they can set that mindset to explore without
right.
a timeline to it. Because when you put a timeline, then it becomes like, oh, I don't know who I am, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, right? So
Yeah,
grounding
yeah.
a little bit in what they are good at, doing some assessment about their personality, trying to talk through, give them some resources of how they can explore in their own time
Right,
in a structured manner, as well as there's one thing called 360 feedback, which is not just getting feedback from one person, but getting from everyone around you. So
yeah,
people who have
yeah.
worked with you, people who are your family, your
Yeah,
friends, right?
yeah. The 360 feedback is like, yeah, I'm
Yeah,
familiar.
familiar.
Uh,
Yeah,
it, it's a it's a it's a business term. I've heard it
yeah,
multiple times. Like you get your feedback from everyone that's around you, and like not just your family member, but I think if you can get it from more people around you. In
exactly.
the business context, it's mostly colleagues and like people we work with. But yeah, that helps. And how do you work with areas of improvement? Because that is going to be a challenging thing, isn't it? Because like it's often I see that okay, people are at let's say level 1, and then let's say they want to go to level 10, and obviously there is a learning curve, and there are areas that we would have to correct, and there are things that we want to explore, go out of the comfort zone, and right. So how does that process look like? Because convincing someone to get out of their comfort zone, or you know what I mean. I mean, it's
Yeah.
very it's not easy also sometimes.
Yeah, it's a great question. So, thankfully, so far, I've had clients who had either some level of clarity or were open to taking that leap and trying things out. Like, I did not
Right,
have to
right,
push them to completely change.
right,
But I think in general, so I'll tell you this past year that I've formally done it, like put my
right.
all in and did it. I did a lot of one on one coaching versus a
Got it,
group coaching because I wanted to
got it.
understand what some of the common pain points were, what kind of people
Right,
were coming to me. And I decided
right.
on women and minorities because those were the people that, chose to work with
Probably needed the most help. Yeah, yeah,
exactly and
sure.
needed the most help exactly.
Yeah,
So I think it's kind of evolving. I'm at a point where I see two or three kind of repetitive, similar challenges a lot of people are having. So I'm trying to
right,
hone in on that and make like a group cohort for next year, to
right.
kind of make a structured program out of it rather than like a la carte, like choose what you want
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
situation.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I think it's a journey in itself, and I'm completely, to be honest, I feel I am a beginner in this myself, having done it for like
Right.
a year or so. So I'm
Yeah.
learning a lot, and I feel like there's a lot of need for different types of problem solving. That's
Yeah.
what prompted me to bring in other coaches, because I want to help them all solve everything, but I cannot
Right.
do it on
Right.
my own. So
Yeah.
it's been an evolution. Yeah.
No, no, thanks for sharing that. Yet another area, probably slightly segue from the same focus, but slight segue from our conversation is like in terms of like the competition that we have in the job market, and I think it's intense, and I see a lot of layoffs going on, and I think the way the business and corporate works, it's like super fast. Like every week, every 3 months, every 2 months, there's continuous change, continuous learning. And what would be something from a career point of view would be advising people on their like career paths and how do they achieve their goal? Maybe someone is looking for a promotion, not just a green card. Everyone's goal is different, right?
Yeah.
So someone navigating their career, going through challenges, what would be some tips that you would likely suggest from your experience?
That's a great question. I think one thing that's something I suggest for almost everybody is, are you proactively managing your career, or are you just doing your job? Because a lot of times we get into this mode of, I want to do a good job, and think that that
Right,
is going to just develop your career. But these are kind of intertwined, but two different things. Job is your like current, whatever, title and thing, and then career is your path, like your entire journey, right? So from the get go, I think it's important to carve out at least 1 to 2 hours every week to do networking calls. So networking in person or virtually, right? So it could be a
right,
combination, depending on, for example, if somebody is like, I don't know if my company is going to have huge layoffs, there it looks like there is a rumble, I'm concerned, that somebody should be prioritizing external networking over internal networking. But
right,
for somebody like me, I love my company, I love my job, I want to grow my
right,
career at, wherever I am. I do more
right,
internal calls. At least 70% of my networking time is allocated to internal calls. And it could be as
right.
simple as, asking people in your immediate team, or asking leaders, asking sponsors, trying to identify the right people you want to build that network around, right? And that's
Yeah,
where I think now my perspective on networking is a little different. I do it very intentionally with purpose, because I
yeah,
already have that organic network built who would be there for me no matter what. So now I want
yeah.
people who would open doors for me. I want people who will champion me internally. So I intentionally pick
Right,
people who have the power, who have the influence, and put myself in their forefront to bring visibility to myself. So I
right,
think okay, the first advice is networking, second advice is visibility. So whether it's internal or external, once you know, okay, you want to grow internally, or there is rumble, you want to grow externally, you should make yourself very visible, right, and to the right audience.
of
So
course, yeah,
I think right now when I sit here and think about it, like, this is the first time in my entire life I don't want to move to another place to get anything different in terms of career. I feel
right,
I want to make Atlanta my home. Right now I'm
right,
not there yet, but I'm working on it. So one thing I
right,
do for myself is also thinking, okay, if I want to live here for the next 10 years, what are companies I could potentially work at? Should anything happen, should I be laid off?
right,
And intentionally putting myself on a visibility radar with those people who are potentially
right,
future, employers, colleagues. Because a lot of
yeah,
times when you get to that passive mode, you're just working, doing the job, and then suddenly you're like, I want to find another job, and that's
yeah,
not going to happen overnight, right? These are things that
right,
take time, and especially in the
right,
US. Um, I think I want to share one incident. I met with an Indian person
yeah,
at work, and prior to this, I had never worked closely with. I think I only worked with one other Indian colleague closely in the same
hmm,
project, same team. So my
right,
entire grooming professionally was done by non-Indians, right?
right,
Person comes to me, it's our first coffee chat, we are meeting, he's like, what can I do for you, what can you do for me? I just got
yeah,
shocked. I was like, I've never heard that before. It was a moment of culture shock. Even though I'm an Indian myself, I
right,
that you can ask like that, like bluntly.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah.
because usually it's like asking, do you want to get married in the first date, right? Usually you kind of take a little bit of time, get to know them.
It's a political meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, I was so
Get-
confused. I was like,
Let me become the member of parliament, and yeah, I mean,
I was super confused. So I think that's where I think you should look at it like gardening, right? You sow
yeah,
the seeds,
yeah,
you make the plants grow slowly, and
yeah,
when it blooms, or when when vegetables are coming out, then you pluck it out. You don't go look for existing flowers in a networking setup.
yeah,
Yeah, that's what a lot of people do. Everybody wants like flowers ready to be plucked without even
yeah.
sowing the seeds. So
Right,
that's an advice I'd give for anybody in whatever stage of career, whatever they are trying to do. I think quality over quantity. I'm not saying you should go spend like hours of time trying to like know everyone, but pick
right.
the right people, put yourself in the right spots, and give yourself
Yeah,
at least like 1 to 2 hours a week, right?
yeah. Of
Bare
course.
minimum you can do to nurture your career.
Yeah, yeah. No, that is that is so fascinating how you said it. But I mean, let me share you a quick story. I mean, like we were in a coffee chat or something. We were just like hanging out with a few people, and like one guy mentioned, "Hey, did you see? Did you see? I don't know what the name he mentioned. Okay, did you see Adam send a friend request on Facebook? And right, and oh yeah, did you accept it? Oh no, I'm not going to accept it. He's not my friend. Yeah, he's my colleague, right? I mean, like the point I was trying to get across is like not everyone is your friend in a work setting. The reason being, right? But I like people more than I don't like them. I see a larger good in the society because, like, what you think is how you manifest is how it becomes. And I definitely see most of the people are really, really good, right? Let me put that first out there. That being said, but there's also good and there's also some bad, right? I mean, sometimes not everyone is your friend. Sometimes there's competition amongst your peers, and it's sometimes hard to even network with them and to even have a normal conversation, right? So I mean, I've lived through this like for 2 decades now. If any contract or any engagement I enter it, like I'm looking to connect with people. I like to say hello, and like I don't care whether you're getting promoted or I'm getting promoted or not. That's probably the last in my list.
Yeah.
And rather, the first thing I want to do is like say hello, because that's a person sitting in front of me. I want to, doesn't matter whether it's Indian, Chinese, or
Hmm.
American, doesn't really matter. But it takes evolution, and I think people often fall into the trap of, oh, if I become friends with you, I would lose my promotion, or I would lose if, let's say, if I'm in a good books of X and Y, I don't want to get in trouble,
Mm.
right? So how do we navigate when a system is not often set in your favor, because the networking is not always everyone's cup of tea in such an environment? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So I think, politics it does exist, right? You cannot
yeah.
not have it.
Cannot
So
escape it.
yeah, yeah. For me, most times to be honest, I don't like to get involved in like office drama or politics, but I know it exists. It's around me, and sometimes you can just like
Yeah,
some people bring certain vibes and some people have
of
perceptions
course.
strongly about the
Yeah,
others. One thing I would say is like, again, I think going with a little bit of that explorer mindset of forming your own opinions based on facts rather than
yeah.
letting the environment dictate who that person is
Oh
or
yeah.
who they are not. And
Right.
for me, it's also like the way I have been lately picking mentors or even people to have coffee or chat with, right? It's people I want to learn from. That's the top priority. And then
Right.
people I can help. So that's the second priority. I think when you
Right.
balance this, it's a beautiful mix because you're giving and taking, right? There is some
Yeah.
balance to it. So the way
Yeah.
I do it is, for example, one of my recent colleagues and I met, and I told him upfront, I was like, you have a great executive presence and your slides are the best I've ever seen, like anybody make. Can you
Right.
teach me those two things? Because I think a lot of times you want to be specific to tell people how you want to be helped. It's
Right.
not always about, hey, can I can we talk,
Yeah.
can you get me a job? That doesn't get you much,
I
much
know.
more. So you have to be specific, ask for something.
Priorities are different, of course.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah. Even if I, let's say, want a job, I would ask very upfront, hey, this is a situation. I am in a position where I'm interested in these three roles, and I know you're involved in whatever, right? So, can you
Right.
help me understand how I can position myself best for the job? Instead of asking, oh, can you get me the job? I've also asked a leader to help me get an interview, because you cannot ask them to get a job. You can ask them to
Right.
get an opportunity to interview.
That's right.
That's a very fair ask, right? So you
Yeah.
just think through what you're asking and be as specific as possible, so they know
Yeah.
to help you, because they are not going to be sitting and thinking in the midst of their lives, in the chaos of everything around them,
Yeah. Yeah.
that okay, what
They have a
can I.
million problems already.
Exactly. Like they probably
Yeah.
have, a full-fledged life, kids, their,
Right.
drop-off schedule, pickup schedule, 100 different meetings, and all
Right.
different engagements. So they're not going to be thinking, oh, I think I met Tamanna over coffee. She vaguely wanted something. Maybe I'll just vaguely ignore her, right? Because I don't know what to do.
Vaguely ignore her. I mean, I like how you said it. Let me vaguely ignore that person next time. no,
Yeah, it's like
no, I like it.
it's
Yeah.
not a priority
Yeah.
when you don't specify the ask and put a timeline to it. It's not a priority. They're going to prioritize other things that are urgent. So
Yeah.
I always like to follow up actively with a timeline, with the why behind why it's urgent or why
Right.
you need it. And in cases like the person I talked about, I just want to learn from him, because I'm at a
Yeah.
position where I have the executive presence most times, but sometimes it's different when you're put in a completely different environment, right? When you switch from
Right.
one company to another or one team to another, you
Of
want
course.
people
Yeah.
to trust your opinions, hear them out. Don't
Yeah.
believe it blindly, but hear them out. So
Yeah.
I'm open about it. Usually, I'm like, if I don't have something and others have something that they are good at,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
open about telling, hey, can you teach me? I've even told a couple of like young college students who were interning for me once. I told them,
Right.
hey,
Right.
I have no idea how you did this. Can you teach me how to do it? Because
Yeah.
the learning process is not always about learning from people older, more successful. Sometimes it's also about looking at the younger generation. They have so much of fresh,
Right.
perspectives they bring to the table. So I
Yeah.
think network, I would also put that one word in. Networking could be
Yeah.
cross generational. It does not always have to flow from top to bottom. It can also flow
Right.
from like bottom to top, and the
Yeah.
changes there would be enormous if it cross flows. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, that is very well said. One just follow up question on
yeah,
the same topic
yeah.
because like that just stuck with me. Of course, I mean like someone did a great slide and please teach me how to do it, and they'd be happy to tell you, right? I've also seen other set of people probably spend 10, 20 years in a company and they built a fort around themselves, so protective, not sharing the information that they're supposed to.
Hmm.
I'm like the exact opposite, right? The first meeting, oh yeah, here's how it is done, right? I mean, like, come have a coffee with me. I'll probably tell you the entire story. So
Yeah,
I mean, it's coming from a different perspective. How do you deal with situations like that? Because they seem to be super insecure, right? Which I'm not
yeah.
sure if that's the right word, but it looks like it. How do you deal with things like that?
Great question. And I think this is a great time to talk about my second sponsor. So that was actually when in my first job out of college, I had a boss who was very extremely racist. He was discriminating in many different ways. He was uncomfortable that I had a master's degree. He was
Hmm.
at least 30 years, experienced versus I was just starting out. He didn't like the fact that I was doing things fast, grasping things fast, and just going for it. Um,
Right,
so there was a lot of a situation of bullying in some sense. But at that time, I was, mostly Indian and very less like evolved to where I am now. So I just
right,
put up
right.
with it. I was like, he's my guru. I'm not going to, in my head, that was the way I was looking at it. He's here to like, he's my boss. He's my first boss ever. I'm
Yeah,
going to just let him tell me what to do. I did not speak back. I did not, try even. I would just stand there and listen. That's it.
Right.
So the company's owner, it was a small family based company. So he walked into the R&D lab. At that time, it was just the two of us. So he was the
Right.
boss, and I was the only other person working. He came in, he saw the whole situation was kind of awkward because I was crying like by myself in a corner without anybody seeing me. And he saw me like fully in like soaked tears. And he said, can you come to my office later? So I just like kind of composed myself, went to his office, and he asked what was going on. I told him, hey, I don't want to cause an issue. I'm not formally, interested in making a complaint. But this is how things have been. So I just dropped like a teaser of the whole situation without giving any
Right.
details because I didn't want
Right.
the other person to get into trouble in many ways.
Yeah.
So I think he said a lot of things that day, but one thing just stuck with me. He was like, you're in America, you are having an American boss, and this is an American company. So you have to snap out of it and be like American women. Just go advocate for yourself, talk about it. You're not going to hide behind and cry. This is not the kind of person that will be successful in this country. In many ways,
Right.
I mean, he didn't use the same words, but that's what he
Essence of, yeah.
yeah, he made me, it was just like a wake up call. I was like, what am I doing? Like, I can,
Right.
like I can be the person that stands up for myself. So I think that
Right.
moment, I mean, it took years for me to evolve and actually apply that in my real life. But that
Right.
moment is what I hold on to because he just woke me out of my like this and not all Indians are like that, right? I just grew up in
Right.
a way where I was more humble. I would not want to cause any problem, kind of thing. And many immigrants have
Right.
that trait. Like we try to put our heads down, do the job, and stuff like that. So I think going back to your question, if somebody has a wall built around them, that is unfortunately their loss. So you have to try
Yeah.
and you can approach them first, approach them humbly, ask them if they would like help you learn or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But if that's not happening, you got to own your career and do what's best for you, right? Especially if you're in a situation where you're reporting to them and they are not being helpful or helping you grow. That is like a big red flag. You need to be thinking
Vaguely
about,
ignore them. I mean,
yeah. Yeah, like that is a
probably.
huge
Yeah.
huge red flag. I feel
Yeah.
a lot of times we get into this, and again another mindset thing, right? We get into this like
Yeah.
defense mode with everything. Once you come to a new
Right. Right.
country, you're like playing it safe, just want like to get the visa, stick with the job, just don't ruffle any feathers, keep going.
Right.
But what
Right.
if you
Right.
took an offensive stand? What if you
Yeah.
ended up giving back, like in a very
Yeah.
respectful and a gentle way? You don't have to be aggressive, but
Right. Right.
you don't have to take shit. You can stand up
Yeah.
for yourself, you can speak up for yourselves in a way that's
Yeah.
professional, but
Yeah.
you got to do it for yourself because nobody else can do it for you, right? So that's something I would I mean, let the audience think a little bit about
Yeah.
how what aspects of Indianness or the culture do you want to hold on to, and what
Yeah.
aspects are not serving you well and you want to let go of, right? Intentionally letting go is, it's very difficult, but it's worth doing, especially if you're in a position where you're struggling because of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm the one like I mean I wouldn't say I mean some call it I ruffle feathers a lot. I mean I don't mind ruffling feathers if it doesn't make sense to me. If it's BS, I call BS out probably on the moment it
Yeah.
happens, and they don't like it. I mean I say I'm not here to make me like anyone or like I don't want to come and like you. That's not my job here. We are here for a reason. Let's do it, and we become friends. That's great,
Yeah.
right? So that's what I come up with. And I'm sure there are challenges when some people are able to do it, some people are not able to do it, which is definitely a challenge because my own friend, my own colleague said, "Hey, VJ, you were able to do it, man. Like kudos to you." But like, yeah, I'm super skeptical. The best they have a shard is probably to fire you out of the job, right?
Yeah.
I mean I mean to me that never occurs to me. Okay, you're going to fire me, go ahead and fire me, right?
Yeah.
So that I think is the courage that anytime I try mentor people. Not very frequently, but whenever I do it, I think people need to have courage to do
Courage.
anything. to do anything, just to even take a walk in the park, right? I mean,
Yeah.
people need to have courage. I mean, during COVID times, you remember, like, even taking a walk needed courage, right?
Yeah.
So that being said, in a different country, in a Western hemisphere, things work differently in this part of the world. So you can be nice to at least 99% of the people, but there are those, like, people you have
The
to have the
bad
courage and
apples.
speak up.
Yeah.
Yeah, to speak up and then basically tell them what it is. And you know what the good part, Tamana, is? Some of these people who actually did not, like, where those bad apples came back and told me, VJ, you were right, and I shouldn't have done that. And like,
Hmm.
that means a lot to me. I mean, like,
Hmm.
because I, at least it gives me composure that, like, okay, I did the right thing, and I'm glad that I stood up for myself
Yeah.
that day, right? I think
Yeah.
that's what I would tell anyone, to have the courage and speak their mind, especially in the corporate culture or on social media.
Mhm.
People are discouraged to speak their mind,
Yeah.
right? I mean, like, oh, what if my boss notices that I posted this, or if I reposted it, or if I, right? It's
Yeah.
very weird situation. You cannot even speak what is in your mind. That doesn't make any sense with me, right?
Yeah.
So I think maybe that is one of the reasons I'm speaking to so many people, to speak my mind, right? And I think that is very empowering, not just in America. I think that should be happening all across the globe. If it's
That
not
is,
happening
yeah.
somewhere, I'm really sorry for those people.
Yeah, I mean, that is foundational freedom of speech, right? You have the right to
Yeah,
express what you think, who you are, obviously in a reasonable way where you're not going like polarized and trying to harass
yeah,
other people. But
yeah.
yeah, yeah, I think there should be some healthy level of expression that you're free to do. So
And one other thing, I think, I mean, I come from a similar place, Coimbatore and
yeah,
the area and everything, right? I think the primary thing, I'm not sure many of the Western audience wouldn't know, is that the primary thing, at least from there, is respect, right? I mean, the respect is forefront for anything.
yeah,
And I'm meeting with Chinese, Asians. I was in Colombia last week. I'm meeting with so many other people. Like, the first thing, I think that goes a long way worldwide. I think it's a global phenomenon.
yeah,
Something I'm so happy that we have that over in that place. So I think when you put respect first and then deal everything behind that, you don't have to sugarcoat anything. You can
hmm,
be straight about it, but at the same time do it with respect.
respect.
And I think people do honor it and do recognize where you're coming from, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
that's
Yeah. And I think I at least me, when I look back in my career, I remember most of the people who disagreed with me than the people who
right,
agreed with me. So when I
right,
want honest opinion, I go to the people who disagreed because they I know that they're going to just call it as they see it instead of trying to
yeah,
give me like this, nice sugar coated responses.
yeah,
So those are also good people to have in your network. You always need to have a good mix of the cheerleaders who believe in you no matter what, but also the critics who are
of
giving
course.
constructive criticism and helping you see things that you otherwise would probably miss. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course,
yeah.
definitely 100%. I agree with that. And I think as we are coming closer to the wrap, not
Yeah.
immediately, but I think we are getting closer to it. I mean, you're trying to create your future. And I think the best way to probably predict the future is actually go ahead and create it. And I think we are all in the process, and kudos to whatever you've done. And so looking back, in your journey and in your personal growth and in your reflection, what do you think would be those, like, principles, personal principles or values that have been most critical for your success?
Great question. I think you touched on the first and foremost one, which is courage. I think most of my journey was not a chartered, guaranteed path to success, right? Whatever I created it out of a dark place where I didn't know what to expect. Not dark in a bad way, but it was just like not a well traveled path in many ways. So when I chose the university I did, again, nobody had graduated from that school, so there was no placement, there was no guarantee of what to expect. And that
Right.
course again wasn't a popular one. Nobody knew what would you get a job, kind of coming out of it. It was never about getting a guaranteed job or getting to be the director of Coke was not the goal. The courage to experiment and try different things, it might not always lead to this kind of outcome, but it helped me a lot to take a lot of steps that others are not as open to taking. I think challenging your limiting beliefs and taking that courageous front is very foundational. Second one I would say is resilience. I personally had a lot of hurdles in my life, personally as well as professionally. I could have given up in many stages. I know there's a lot of pro quitting culture as well, right? If it's not working, you quit and do your own thing. Absolutely.
Of course, yeah.
Works for you, again, if you can afford to do it, if it's working for you, if your lifestyle allows for it, great. But that's not the case for majority of people. It's
Yeah.
you got to do what you got to do. There is also a duty bound aspect to being Indian and being a family member, right? Whatever kind of
Right.
family you have, that's it may not allow for that kind of freedom. So in those cases, I think continuing to fight, and not fight like verbally, but like be resilient so you don't break and give up. So I think that was the second one. And then the third one I would say is persistence. So for me, I applied for many schools. I reached out to hundreds of professors before I found the one that gave me the scholarships and assistantships.
Right. Right.
I got rejected by hundreds and thousands of companies, I'm sure, by this time, like, in a cumulative period of 10 years before I
Right.
got the kind of job that I like and the kind of career that I want to build. And then third thing, the resilience goes a long, persistence goes a long way, because sometimes it takes years. EB1 takes years. A green card takes years.
Of
Getting to a
course.
leadership
Yep.
role takes years. If somebody
Right.
had put a timeline to, let's say, even if I did put a timeline to it 2 years back and said, if I don't get it now, I'm quitting.
Right.
It's like the story that we all
Yeah.
grew up
Yeah.
hearing,
It
right?
doesn't work like that. It
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
work like
yeah.
that.
You
Yeah.
you you've already dug like nine feet of
Yeah.
uh
Digging gold. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like in the 10th feet, so you just don't know how far you have to go, but that's no reason to give up, right? So I think if
Right.
somebody wants whatever it is, this principle applies to life as well as like professional goals. Whatever you set your mind on, it is achievable as long as you're willing to take the risks that come with it,
Right.
knowing reward is worth it. Stay resilient despite the hurdles. And honestly, without all the hurdles, I feel my life would have been so boring. Like, even though at the moment of the hurdle, I was like, why
Right.
am I one of the Indians struggling with this? I could have been born in so many other countries, and all these narratives go in the head. But coming out of it, I'm like, oh, actually, that feels a lot more, um, you know, internally, it's giving a lot more joy because it was so much harder. So I think
Right.
there's a part to adversity and issues and hurdles
Of
that
course.
when you come
Right.
out of it, you realize that it's like you're bouncing out of it rather than walking out of it. And the persistence is something that's also very foundational. You've got to be consistent. You got to keep trying until you get it. You may not get it exactly in the same timeline as me or anybody else you're featuring in your podcast get it if you try to recreate the journey, but continuing to know that the time is a variable you cannot control. You cannot control how soon a job that you want opens up and you're in the right
Right.
place, right time. But continuing to stay at it, I think that goes a long way. And a lot of success stories actually say the same things over and over, but it is
Yeah.
true. It is foundational to what people should like think about and try to inculcate in their practices. So
Right. Two or three more questions
yeah.
as we get close. I mean, you speak about Indian a lot, quote unquote, like, and of course, coming from Eastern Hemisphere, so the West is of course the West in a different the other side of the world in its in real meaning, right?
Mhm.
And I think there is larger good in the society that people need to basically grasp and go ahead and if you're basically approaching good, you'll obviously see good. I mean, a best example is like, let's say you bought a brand new, I don't know, your red BMW, you will see red BMWs on the road all the time, right? So that's how
Yeah.
it works. At least that I so believe it. So what are the things that I think the West can learn from the Eastern Hemisphere,
Oh,
particularly
this is
from
great.
India? You're coming
Yeah,
from there, and what do you think? Maybe some of the great things that you have learned from the West as well. So that I
that's
think that would
amazing.
bring the audience closer, and I think I so believe in building people together. So I think that would get people together.
I
Yeah.
love the question. It's a great question. I have a huge I'm a foodie, but also I love travel. So
Right.
I'm setting out to visit, a whole lot of this world and again understand more of the culture. But from the little
Right.
I've seen in the 10 years that I've lived in the US, and the 20 years that I lived in India, 20 odd years. So I think what is good in the West that East can adopt is just knowing that culture.
And vice versa as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Starting with
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
and then I'll get to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the first thing is, I think, knowing that like culture comes with some level of structure, right? Back in the East, you think that you fit into a culture only if you dress a certain way, eat certain things, live a certain lifestyle, and try to kind of condition you to follow and comply with certain norms. To me,
Right.
that was suffocating growing up. I never fit in, and my family never fit in the normal, conventional mold of what you expect out of somebody from that town and that,
Right.
community and things like that. So I think that's something that East could learn from West. It's okay to be free and still be part of the culture. I think there needs to be
Right.
some room to be yourself within that,
Right.
collective society. And I think a
Right.
lot of times, again, this goes back to the fear of losing who you are and who you are as a society, as a community,
Yeah.
that defines people to try and, shrink into it.
Right.
Versus when you try and expand, you're going to be more and more of you, who you already were, right? So that's one thing I think,
Right.
foundational one thing from West that East can learn.
Right.
East to West, I'll share one there. I think the food habits, I feel Eastern, I mean, even Eastern food that you buy in the US, right? The portion is smaller, the variety
Right.
is better, it's more nutritious. I personally love Asian cuisine like sushi, poke, Vietnamese. I had pho for lunch. So it's like
Right.
there's so much of Eastern food, habits and type of food. There's a variety to it that I think the West can certainly adopt. Like,
Right.
there is so much of the fast food culture, but also a high calorie dense food culture. I'll give you one this moment that stands out in my mind. So every time I visit India, I feel everything
Yeah.
shrinks. The plate size is smaller, the tumblers are smaller, the cups are smaller, everything is smaller. So I end up eating lesser whenever I go to India
Yeah.
at home, but outside is a different story, but at home. Versus
Right.
here, you have everything is huge. So when my
Bigger
parents
portions
visit,
and
my mom is like,
yeah.
why do you have like a coffee mug that can take two, three people's coffee? I'm like, no,
Yeah.
that's that's just for one person. So I'm drinking like this
Yeah.
whole mug of tea. So I
Yeah.
think the way everything is big sized,
Yeah.
and we end up eating more, we are, putting ourselves to work out more, which does not happen because we watch more Netflix. So I think the consumption needs to
Right.
be, uh, somewhere rationed for a sustainable lifestyle. Sustainable
Yeah.
meaning what you can sustain, right? If you eat more, you have to work out more to stay same level of fitness. Instead, why
Yeah.
don't you scale back, eat more balanced, eat more variety, so you don't have to do like 3 4 times of effort to keep yourself fit. So that's something I am trying to apply to my own life, because being a foodie in America does not help. There's so much to
Yeah.
eat all the time. So I'm like, how do I mix a little bit of my East and West so I get to explore, but quantity is always like in a place that is right for me and sustainable for
Right.
my lifestyle.
No, no, no. That's very good. I mean, like I was just thinking about a story when you were talking about it. My parents were here in the U.S. We took a cross country trip from Pennsylvania to California to Vegas, and of course we are coffee drinkers, right? I mean, my dad loves coffee, and like so we did end up buying three coffee. I mean, what we ended up doing is because of the quantity of thing,
Hmm.
the portion size is much smaller. It is doesn't mean we are conservative. We just drink small portions multiple times through
Yeah,
the day. That's
exactly.
how it works,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Three or
Yeah.
four coffees a day, or two
Yeah.
three coffees a day. It's pretty normal. Instant versus like 500 ml of a coffee, one shot, right? So we ended up buying one or two coffees and sharing between three or four people. So I I was just like thinking about it, laughing in my
And
head
it's even
when
better. My husband does not like to share food, but I always tell him we need to buy one and share, because it's better
yeah,
for us, not just financially, but also like the portion is enough for two people for one meal.
right,
But
right,
he's a single he was a single child growing up, so he does not like sharing. I have a sibling, right? So I am used to sharing. So we always have
right,
this tug of war. We are like, do you want to share or not? Why
yeah,
don't you want to share? So I think sharing is another aspect of, I don't know if it's
yeah,
west or east, but hopefully all of us can adapt more to
yeah.
share. Yeah.
Yeah, sharing is caring. They say,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. That's all good. I mean, like, I just took this code and kept it. Like, I love this code. I mean, it goes like this: life is not about waiting for the storm to pass, but about learning to dance in the rain.
Absolutely.
Uh, right. So people got to learn to dance in the rain in a way or not. Like, so I think life teaches them to do that over a period of time through struggles and whatnot. So what would be some of your like closing advice to people who are in that like in the comfort zone, because people are stuck in their like the golden handcuffs, like the paycheck to paycheck problem.
Mhm.
So they are in their virtual world of like just ordering Uber Eats all the time, and they think it's going to be okay. Let the night pass, and then they are stuck in different ways and forms, and people are in like facing uncertainty in terms of like visa hurdles and things like that, and different challenges. What would be your like closing advice to anyone listening to you?
Yeah, I think that quote is like spot on. It is so hard to implement in real life. Like 3 years back, when whoever said, all my cheerleaders said, you'll definitely get the green card, I was like, you don't even know what you're talking about. You have no
Right,
idea. It's not going to happen. I'm going to prove that it's not happening. So, in the moment, it was very hard to believe that everything is going to be okay. And
right,
coming out of it, it's easy for me to say that everything is going to be okay, but maybe sometimes everything will not be okay, right? It is okay. That is what life is. It's not a package where everybody gets to get everything they want. It's a package where some people get some things more than other people do, but you also have your own set of something that's different from
right,
other people. So for me,
right.
growing up, I had a lot of like, Indians are stuck in comparison trap a lot more than we want to,
Comparison is a
agree.
thief of joy.
Exactly. Yeah. Indians and
Yeah,
otherwise also in general, whoever's
yeah,
listening, I think the comparison goes to literally thief of joy. It gets to
yeah,
drain the joy out of you. So you got
yeah.
to kind of do a reality check. For me, the I know it's cliche, but gratitude reflections work a lot. I have a 600 or 800 day, a 600 to 800 day streak of gratitude, meaning every day I take like a moment just to think and
Right,
see what I have, because it is so easy to let what you don't have take up all your mind's
yeah,
bandwidth. But sit and think what you have. And that's when I started I think for a lot of long many years I thought my family being unconventional was a issue. And then
right,
when I started seeing success, because my mindset was different, the way I approached things was different, all because my family was so different from everyone that I grew up with. So
right,
I reap the benefits of that difference now. And now looking back, I'm like, oh, I'm so glad they were so different from everyone else. Otherwise, I would be, I
right,
don't know, like being, not that being a homemaker is any less, but I did not want to be a homemaker, right? Like I got to even think
right,
and realize I wanted to build this life, build a career, do everything that I've been doing all on my own, which is a
right,
scary thing for a small girl to even comprehend. But I was that small girl not too long ago, and somehow it all worked out. So I think a lot of times you don't see the big picture when you're stuck in a situation. But what
right,
you can do, that's not just philosophical gratitude, you can actually
right,
prepare for it. For example, if somebody is stuck in a job, if they are not able to see outside of it, or if they are having that golden handcuffs and struggling, see how you
right,
can change your lifestyle. What would it take for you to? I always, my husband and I, we have like a yearly conversation about this. If we both
right.
want to quit our jobs, how much do we need? And where would
Yeah,
we live for us to have a very relaxed life? without us.
Yeah.
Because once you have those conversations, once you make that, little bit of a
Yeah.
consistent saving towards that, you realize, okay, worst case what, I mean, this was before we got, I mean, before I got the green card, before we were married, when we were dating, we would think, oh, should we go to Canada, should we go to India, should we go, like, stay back in the US? It
Yeah.
was all like a
It's
chaos.
yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and then, like, when we sat and talked about, okay, this is what we realistically need to, like, live, and this is what we need to live well. And
Right.
if we live in India, it would be this much. If we lived here, it would be this. And having that, like, a little bit of a rational talk about it, and some savings and some planning towards it, you can
Right.
find peace of mind that's very rational, right? You don't have to let the emotions always take over and make you
Right.
feel like, oh my god, my life will be not. And that's also going back to, culturally, we attach our, self-worth to the title that we have and the salary that
Yeah.
we get.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We think
Yeah.
that, oh my god, like, I try my best not to, not that I'm shying away from the fact that I have a director role at a Fortune 5, a Fortune 100 company. The
Right.
month I got the job, I didn't even say the title, because I was feeling so, I don't know, like, confused about it. I was like, what, like, and so, one of my mentors, I talked to her at a conference. I said I couldn't say this is my title to anybody because I feel kind of weird about the whole thing. She was like,
Right.
held on to me. She said, say it. I was like,
Right.
now? Yeah, she was like, say it. She made me say it two, three times, and it just broke out of that thing, right? So I think
So say before you close the podcast. You say
I'm the
it.
director of global innovation at the Coca-Cola companies, like, and
Very good.
I think saying helps break over and come out of the imposter
Of
syndrome,
course.
but also
Of
not,
course.
I don't think that, oh, I am the director and I am,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that associates your self-worth to that title. And then when you don't have that, you think, oh my god, I, like, took a step down. It's not a step
Yeah.
down, it's a different, life if I don't have this. So I
Right.
think trying to, again, being intentional about letting go of certain cultural things. I mean, for those who want to keep as much of Indianness in them, just assess what is right for this stage of life, this phase of life, and where you're living, that's serving you well. Keep that. Anything else that means sentimentally valuable to you, keep that. Everything else that is not serving you or actually is detrimental, we need to take a
Right.
moment to, like, reset and let go, which a lot of us find it very hard to do because we are trained and conditioned and molded to be a certain way culturally, right? So
Right.
that's the key takeaway, I'd say. I Any culture, whether it's US, India, other culture,
Yeah.
I think that's where the whole beauty of diversity comes in. Diversity is not about having just the mix of population in corporate companies, but it's
Right.
about knowing what you want to adapt from others that your culture had a blind spot towards, and
Right.
how do you, like, give and show others things that they have blind spots towards, so we can all kind of learn from each other what is good that can be crossed over for both sides. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's a very good wrapping, I think, statement and encouragement for people. And I think I agree with what you shared. I think globally, and I think what I'm realizing is it doesn't matter where you come from, whether you're or Indian or American, Chinese or anything. Everyone has their problems. I've seen that. I've felt that. I'm friends with like all kinds of people,
Hmm.
and I think people have a larger good. Like I keep saying that because I used to believe it, and I think it doesn't matter the skin color. And yes, of course, there are people like the crazy ones out there who try to divide over different things, and they would probably divide over red and green, right? They're
Yeah.
probably divide everything that is actually possible. But I think division is not what is needed for humanity. I think united is what gives us strength, unity, strength. So I would encourage more people to also be not be stuck in where they come from and how they look and how they appear and things like that. And I think there is definitely more people who want to hear their voice, regardless of who they are, where they're coming from, and whatnot. So thank you for that. And as a closing, Tamanna, where can people find you? And please give them the information to go ahead and find you and follow you.
That's a great question. That's a great closing ask. So I'm most active on LinkedIn. You can find me on my LinkedIn page, goes by my name, Tamanna Ramesh. DM me, and it's me, no bot or no other people responding. I look at all my messages, so definitely reach out to me. I am trying to be active on Instagram. It is a very cringe feeling to put myself out in the Instagram platform. I know a lot of people do a great job at just having these video, reels and stuff. So I can be found at the handle Spark Your Career, with an
Right.
underscore between each word. So Spark underscore your underscore career. I'm trying to post meaningful content around education, career, and immigration, all things with respect to US. If, if somebody were to recreate my whole journey, these are things that I wish I had known. These are resources I wish I had had. So I'm trying to like compile all that and post it in meaningful ways. So if you're looking to scroll through, educational micro learning reels and content, I'm just starting out there. So come follow me there.
That's amazing, Tamana. I so enjoyed our conversation today. Probably we'll do another episode sometime later in the future. But thank you so much for you being in our show today, and appreciate your time and all your beautiful answers. Thank you so much, and I wish you all the very best in your endeavors with Spark Career Services and how you coach people and your career at Coca-Cola. I wish you the best and love to stay connected. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vijay, and thank you so much for having me. And good luck with your, podcast. I've listened to a couple of them. I'm so eagerly waiting for many more episodes of real good, just human to human, meaningful conversations. So good luck with that.
No, thank you so much. I appreciate it.